Hello.
Hi, everybody.
Kayla Lords.
John Brownstone.
Of Loving BDSM, where we help kinksters like you have happy, healthy power exchange relationships.
That's the rumor.
We took a break from making little videos. And apparently we took an even longer break from sharing 5 tips, do these things, 5 things you ought to know. I don't even remember what it's called anymore. That's how long it's been.
Wow.
I know. And I don't even want to tell you how long we spent trying to just record saying hi in our name. We should be ashamed of ourselves. But we are back, and we are here for the second time trying to make this video, because it didn't come out the first time, sharing 5 things we think you ought to know about drop in general. We have talked about subdrop before as part of subspace, but now we're just going to talk about it in general, and then we're also going to link to videos, podcasts, other things where we've talked about this in more depth if you want to deep dive. But yeah, that's what I think we're doing today. Yeah, that's what we're doing. Okay, so let's get into our top 5 things you want to know.
Okay, number 1. Drop happens to both dominants and submissives.
Yeah, it's always talked about in the context of subdrop.
Yeah, that's where you hear it the most.
Yeah,
sure.
But there are terms called dom drop and top drop, and that is for the other side of the slash, because it can happen to anybody. Partly because depending on why it happens, it's what goes up must come down. So whether you have the actual high of top space or subspace, or you just have a really good time, and now you're going back to regular life, which maybe is not so fun. It's not just for submissives, it's not just for subspace, and I think that's important to remember, because I think dominants get left out of the care that's needed, we'll get to that in a minute, for drop.
Yeah. Number 2, drop can happen for multiple reasons.
I think I already said that, but let's say it again. Yes, top space, subspace, you're on that chemical endorphin high of doing your kinky thing. What goes up comes down. But we used to get dropped just from getting to spend time together when we were long distance, and then being apart again.
After whichever one of us went home, yeah.
I mean, and it wasn't like, oh, you were the one that went home, so you went through drop. The moment you left, we were both in, and not always the moment, but once we were separated
Pretty
again.
darn close.
So I have experienced drop after really intense scenes, even if I didn't hit subspace. We've experienced drop after being together and then being apart. I could see it happening if you just get a really intense weekend where you can be your kinky self and it's just a time to let go, and then here comes Monday morning and you have to go to work again.
Oh, Monday
right? I mean, I would get dropped too. Just saying.
Yeah.
And I think that the best example of this, because drop is not just for kinky people. If you've ever gone to a convention. There's a term called con drop. So you go for a week or a weekend, well, maybe not right now because there's a plague outside, but you go, you have an amazing time, you connect with like-minded people, and then that reality changes and you go back to sort of your day-to-day, and there can be a drop from that. There can be a low from that.
We both experienced that time we went to the UK.
We Twice,
yeah.
Yeah, 3 times. How many times did I go to London?
You 3, me twice.
Right, for an erotic writing conference called Eroticon, and yeah, there's always drop after that. It's hard to come back from that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it can happen for all kinds of reasons.
That brings us to number 3. You can experience drop in multiple ways.
Yeah, so some people, it's very emotional. They're weepy, they're sad, they're depressed, they're angry. For others, it's flu-like symptoms. Like you think you're coming down with
almost
something.
feel like you're physically getting sick. Yeah.
And then for others, it's a combination of that. So there's no one way to experience drop. Even as an individual, I've experienced it different ways. The very first time I went through drop was previous relationship. We were also long distance. He came to visit me. I went to visit him. Somebody visited somebody. And when we were apart, about 2 days later, I thought I was coming down with something, and I did that whole, I've got that whole travel thing where, you get a cold because you've been around, a whole bunch of people or something. And I never got the actual illness like a cold that I would expect based on the body aches and the fatigue and how I was feeling. And when I finally sort of talked to somebody who went, why do I feel this way? They're like, you're going through drop because you just had this intense experience. Because that comes down. But I've also gotten super cranky. I've gotten super sad. I think that for me is the most common when we were long distance.
Yeah.
You know, when you left, I was a sobbing mess, and then I'd still be a sobbing mess 2 or 3 days later. How have you experienced drop?
I've experienced it in a number of different ways. For me, it's almost been like a mental fog. One time, it hit me really bad fog. And
that makes sense because, especially if you hit top space, because top space is really about hyper focus.
Yeah.
And so then when you come down from that, that would make sense to me.
Yeah. For me, it also comes about as like a malaise. Almost like, I'm tired, I'm dragging, low energy kind of thing.
Yep. And those are all things I've heard described from a lot of people. But yes, it can come about in a bunch of different ways. So if you're not having, quote, classic symptoms, but you're still feeling off, could very well be drop.
Okay, and that brings us to number 4, which is aftercare is the best way to mitigate it.
So people ask all the time, how do I make sure drop doesn't happen? Ooh, I think I'd be a millionaire if I could figure that out.
Yeah,
I personally don't think there is a way to make sure it doesn't happen. I think all you can do is mitigate it, is help yourself get through it and make it a little less bad, maybe. And the best method I've ever seen is aftercare. And everybody's aftercare is different. And both sides of the slash need aftercare.
Yeah, and that's something that's, again, not really talked a whole lot about. You hear it as far as the S side of the slash, what ways to do aftercare. And a lot of times when negotiating a scene, it's even part of the negotiation of what type of aftercare the S type gets. What's not talked about is the type of aftercare for a big D. And that is important too. I know for myself, after a rather intense scene, something that I like that helps is when the S-type thanks me, for the scene. Tells me that they really enjoyed it. They're thankful for what was done. That to me is something that's very important because there is, regardless of how much you're in the lifestyle, there is that little bit of stigma, about what we do. And it can and does niggle in the back of your mind.
Sure. Should I have hit this human being? Was that the right thing to do?
Sure.
Right. Hearing later, hey, that was good. I'm glad we did that. You did a good job. Thank you so much. I think that can hopefully clear up some of those doubts that might still exist back
that linger. Yep.
The thing to remember about aftercare is, depending on the type of scene, a submissive will likely need whatever their type of aftercare looks like immediately after the scene or fairly soon after. If the submissive is the one who's going to provide aftercare to their dominant, that may need to wait until they're physically able to. And so that's a conversation to have. If you are a dominant who knows you need something a little bit more immediate, maybe lean on your kinky friends who kind of know who you are and what you do, and just say, hey, I'm doing a scene tonight. Can you just check on me tomorrow morning? Shoot me a text or give me a call, or hey, are you going to be at the location where we're playing? Can, we chill together afterwards, whatever. Don't be afraid to utilize your community in that way to get what you need until a partner can give you what you need, assuming that your partner will do that. Sometimes it's a play partner situation. I think there should still be aftercare negotiated, and that should still be a conversation for both sides. But that is a little bit less sometimes immediate and consistent than a partner that you have an established relationship with. That is the only thing I found that kind of helps, and it still doesn't always make it go away, especially when we're talking about coming down from a high. That's just a chemical reaction in your body, and aftercare is not going to make that go away completely.
No, but you can ease the symptoms of it.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. And that brings us to number 5. Communication is key to getting through it.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. So I think this is true. Obviously, for long-term relationships, I think it's true for play partners. For play partners, it might be a little bit more casual. I think it can also be something that you negotiate in with a play partner. Hey, can you give me a call in a couple days? Send me a text.
Exactly.
Who calls on the phone anymore? No. Send me a text. Shoot me a DM.
Have a Skype or a Zoom call these
something.
days, you know, something.
But especially in long-term relationships, that should be part of the conversation. If you feel off after this play experience you had, or just a weekend together, or whatever it was, it's not weakness. Speaking to either side of the slash here, to go, hey, I'm struggling. I'm in drop. This kind of sucks. And talking about it with the partner that was there with you can be helpful.
Yeah.
Talking about it with your kink friends and community can be helpful. I think it's really easy when we feel bad to sort of isolate ourselves and think that we're the only one and nobody can understand. And the more we talk about these things with like-minded folks, the easier it is to get through.
Now, I know what helps me a lot, you know, with the communication aspect. It may not be, it's usually not immediately, maybe a day, sometimes 2 days after. It may sound a little clinical, but we kind of do what I call a debrief, especially if we've had a very intense, long scene. And we just kind of talk about what we did and, you know, what went on, likes, dislikes, different things like that. And just talking about it, you know, kind of lightens the feeling. You know, again, going back to when we were long distance, you know, whether you left to go home from visiting me or I left to go home, you know, we were in constant communication, you know, whether it be through text, whether we had set times for phone calls, you know, whatever, or just chats. Being able to reach out at any given time and talk was a tremendous help.
I always say this regardless of the reason, but certainly if one or both of you could be going through drop, post get together, post play, post whatever where drop could occur, the worst thing is radio silence from a partner that, especially that you're used to talking to. Again, this could be different for casual pickup play partners you just met. It's not that serious for both of you. Maybe a quick check-in by text or DM or whatever. Maybe. That's a place to lean on your kinky community. But in an established relationship, for either side of the slash, the hardest part of that, other than the physical feeling, is feeling alone, feeling like there's nobody in the world for you, nobody who gets you, that you are kind of going through this on your own. And I can understand sometimes why maybe there is less opportunity to talk, especially in long distance relationships where you have to get back to your home base and maybe you're going back to work and your kids and you're this and you're that. If there's a reason for radio silence, talk about that prior to. Be very open and honest about that, but do your best to avoid that. Stay in more constant contact than you might otherwise, as you both, or as one of you goes through drop, until you kind of get out of it. A little bonus tip about drop that's not in this list: it lasts as long as it lasts. For some people, maybe it's a day. For some people, it's a week. I don't think that's automatically correlated with how high the high was. I think that it's inherently personal. I can come back from a scene, a really intense scene, fairly quickly, especially if I didn't go into subspace. But the harder drops to get through, the ones that took the longest, were when we were long distance and we had to be separated, because I was also dealing with that emotional toll of missing you and wishing we could be together. And so those drops might take a solid week to 10 days sometimes. Now, it got like, it's a little bit of a curve for me, so it starts out kind of light, and I'm like, am I okay? Am I coming down with something? Oh, now I'm in the middle of drop, so maybe it's a bottom curve. And then as I started to come out of it, I still felt off, but every day I would get better and better after I hit whatever my worst point of drop was. So it's not on a schedule. It's not going to just go away because you will it away. You might be able to work through it by kind of putting it to the back of your mind, but it just takes as long as it takes.
I think the longest I had experienced drop one time, it was about 4 or 5 days.
Yeah, and again, it's sort of like the will you, won't you of drop, and what kind of symptoms will you have. The length of time can change from moment to moment. So that is all we had to say about drop. We have talked about it before. All the links will be down in the description box, including something on Aftercare, because we've talked about that before. So if you want to learn more, you can go click those links and deep dive. If you have your own tips and things you think people need to know about drop to share, please do that in the comments below. We would love to learn from each other. But that's it for us.
Yeah.
If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you want more of it, please consider subscribing.
And if you subscribe, go ahead and ring that notification bell so you get updates of new content.
Just do what Daddy says. And if you really, really like what we do here and want to help us do more of it, join us on Patreon at patreon.com/KaylaLords. Bye.